Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunlitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langate Girim Yatkiripatadam Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinim Pramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanando Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrindo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Very nice seeing you all. So today we'll continue with chapter 2, and the title of this chapter is Contents of the Gita Summarize. So as the title appeals, this chapter gives a summary of entire Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 major sections. The first 6 chapter is about Karma Yoga, and then next, the middle 6 chapter is about Bhakti Yoga, and the last 6 chapter is about Jnana Yoga. So this chapter talks about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and gives some glimpse of Bhakti Yoga. In the previous chapter, we studied that Arjuna, after looking into the battlefield and looking into all the people who were there in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he decided not to fight. And he is giving 4 reasons, and we'll read those reasons quickly, that he doesn't want to fight because it's not good. It's not good to fight. So when Dhritarashtra heard that Arjun has decided not to fight, he was happy. He was very, very joyful, because he thought that that's what he was expecting, because he was not sure about the outcome, what's going to happen. And one of the doubt that he had was, it may happen, since Pandavas are saintly person, it may happen that they will not fight and they will just renounce the kingdom. In that case, my son, especially in this case Duryodhana, will become the king. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that now Arjuna has declined and he doesn't want to fight. So that's what is making him happy. So in this chapter, we'll read how Sanjaya is describing to Dhritarashtra that Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and he is explaining him that why he should fight. Before we get into the chapter, I just want to quickly summarize the 4 reasons Arjuna gave in last chapter not to fight. The first reason he gave is that there is no good fighting with our friends and relatives based upon his compassion. The second reason he gave was that even if I become victorious, there will be nothing, there will be no enjoyment, because all the friends and all the elder members of the family will be killed. Third reason he's giving is that it's sinful. He's feeling the fear that it's sinful to kill our own relatives and friends. And last, he's saying the 4th reason that he's giving is that by this fight, the family tradition will collapse, because if all the men are killed, then one Sankara progeny will take birth into the family, and by that the whole family tradition will collapse. So the top line summary for this chapter is that there are 5 major sections. The first section, from verse number 1 to 10, talks about Arjuna indecision and Arjuna accepting Krishna as his spiritual master. That's the first section. And then the second section, from verse number 11 to 30, Krishna is using Jnana Yoga and very systematically analyzing and explaining him the difference between matter and spirit. So in that section, Krishna is very clearly trying to instruct Arjuna and tell him how soul is Shat, eternal, and how soul is superior than the matter. And then in section 31 to 37, Krishna is talking about the prescribed duty, because here we see that Arjuna is Kshatriya. So what's the Kshatriya of the prescribed duty? What is the prescribed duty of the Kshatriya? The prescribed duty of the Kshatriya is to help Supreme Lord to protect Dharma. In the mission of Supreme Lord, help Lord to establish Dharma. So that's his prescribed duty. And then verse number 38 to 53, we'll also hear about Niskam Karma, acting without the expectation of the result. Either it goes in the favor or it goes in against. That's Niskam Karma, and a little bit about Bhakti Yoga. And then the last section from 54 to 72, we are going to study about Sthit Pragya. What are the quality of a devotee or a person who are in Sthit Pragya stage? Also defeat, as we can't live happy after killing relatives. So he's saying that even, number one, that I do not know who is going to be victorious, but even if I become the victorious, it's like defeat, because there will be no one around. So these are some of the confusion has arisen to Arjuna, which is mentioned up to verse number 6. Then from 7 to 10, Arjuna is surrendering to Krishna. And then from verse number 11, Krishna will start speaking. So in verse number 7, Arjuna is accepting Lord Krishna as his guru, as his spiritual master. Okay, Sisyaste aham sadhimam tam parpanam. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrender unto you. Please instruct me. So at this point in the purport, Prabhupada is writing very strongly, very clearly, that when we come into situation like this, where our knowledge, so-called knowledge, all of us have some knowledge, where our knowledge, where our wealth, where our intelligence is not helping us to find the solution, then that's the stage when one should be ready to inspire the instructions from the spiritual master. So right here, when Arjuna is fully confused and in midst of doubt, he is calling Krishna as his guru, because this type of discussion cannot take place on friendly level. So far Arjuna and Krishna, Arjuna have treated Krishna as his friend, but now this is the time where Arjuna is fully confused. He cannot basically act with Krishna as his friend, because he needs to receive the instructions. And once Arjuna said that now I'm going to accept you as my spiritual master, in fact, Krishna smiled. And right after smiling, Krishna basically started becoming heavy and started giving instructions to Arjuna with full gravity. So, guru also means the one who is heavy. So by this example here, Prabhupada is teaching us that's how one should receive the instruction of a spiritual master, thinking that this instruction is what going to help me come out of the doubt and illusion that we have. So verse number 7 is very important, because in that verse, Arjuna is accepting Krishna as his spiritual master. Verse number 8, he continued saying that I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. So coming to that stage where our intelligence, as I said, is not helping, he's saying that I have come to the stage where I cannot drive away, I cannot dispel the ignorance or the doubt or the grief that has, arisen on me. Arjuna, the chastiser of the enemies, then told Rishikesha, Krishna, Govinda, that I shall not fight, and fell silent. So he was so morose that he said, no, now I shall, oh Rishikesha, oh Govinda, now I shall not fight. So verse number 10, as I said, Krishna is looking at Arjun, he smiled, and then he's taking over as a spiritual master. Okay, so in verse number 2 and 2, Krishna has also chastised Arjun, and he's saying that why these impurities have come upon you. But in reality, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, if somebody will ask you from which verse Krishna has started giving instructions to Arjuna, that's going to be verse number 11. Because, from verse number 11, Krishna has started teaching, instructing Arjuna as a spiritual master, as an instructor. So that's the instruction also Krishna through Arjuna is giving to us. So in verse number 11, Krishna starts instructing Arjuna. And first thing he says is that, do not lament unnecessarily. There is no need to lament unnecessarily. And then I want a little bit focus on that one. So, in the society, there is Arthashastra and Chanakya, Niti is basically blend of Arthashastra and Dharmashastra. So higher than Arthashastra is Dharmashastra. Dharmashastra is the religious principle. So when Arjuna is giving those 4 reasoning that I'm not going to fight, I should not fight, A, B, C, D. Those reasonings are based upon his intelligence that's coming from Dharma Shastra, that's coming from the religious principle. But Krishna wants to basically help Arjuna come up, and he wants to basically give Arjuna the Jnana Shastra. Jnana Shastra is the knowledge of matter. Matter basically, the material world, the nature that exists around is matter, and also the knowledge of the soul, and then the knowledge of the Ishvara. So in chapter 4, in the Bhagavad Gita, the title of the chapter is Transcendental Knowledge. So what is Transcendental Knowledge? The Transcendental Knowledge is basically knowledge of the soul and knowledge of the nature, and then their relationship with Supreme Personality of Godhead. So both nature and both soul is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the Jnana Shastra. That's the highest, that's the higher knowledge, not the highest, higher knowledge, higher than Dharma Shastra and Arth Shastra. So far Arjuna spoke on the basis of Dharma Shastra. Now Krishna is helping Arjuna to come up, and he is giving the instructions which is at the level of Jnana Shastra, on the Sankhya philosophy. So in 12 verse, Krishna is saying, all individuals exist eternally. So all of us, we exist eternally. And then in verse number 13, he's saying that changing bodies are natural. Dehi no asmin yatha dehe kaumaryam yonam jara tatha dehantar praptam dhira tasnamuyate. So this body is changing from boyhood to adulthood to senior to old age, and finally it leaves. So the dhira, the person who is in full knowledge, for that it's not the subject of bewilderment, because he has seen that how his childhood has changed and converted into his youth, how his young adultness has come out of his youth, and how he's now becoming old from his adult age, from his youth age. So that change he has seen, and he knows that this is the nature, so he doesn't get bewildered. So Krishna is basically giving Arjuna who is Dhira. Dhira is the one who is not confused by the duality of the material world, who is not confused by the changes which are inevitable. So then 14 to 15, Krishna is teaching that tolerate the duality and become equanimity, develop equanimity, which is required for liberation. So tolerate the temporary duality, and very, very famous verse, Mata svastu kantaya sitosna shukha dukha daha agam paino nityas tamas titikshava bharata. Oh Arjuna, one must learn to tolerate the dualities of the material world. So now slowly and slowly, basically, Krishna is helping Arjuna come up. So don't be disturbed by the duality, the sitosna dukkha, sitosna sukha dukkha, sukha and dukkha, the summer and winter. This is basically, duality. This is the nature of this material world. So don't be confused. Don't get carried away by that. Rather, be tolerant to it. And same thing, Bhishma, when he was leaving his body, if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1st, chapter 9, when he's leaving body, he is meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at the time of his departure. And he is, he's looking back everything that has happened to Pandava. And he's saying that whatever has happened, nobody is basically at the fault. It's basically inevitable time. It's the time is eternal, and everything is acting under the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, O Pandavas, don't really have any grudge, do not have any grievances for the suffering that you have done, because everybody is carried away with time, is basically moving with time, as cloud basically is moving by wind. Likewise, a dhira person should come out of this duality and understand that everything is moving under the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So be equal to these dualities. So that's basically spoken up to verse number 15. And then from 16 to verse number 22, Krishna is saying the soul never dies and the body is perishable. Changing body is similar to changing clothes. So that's what basically is mentioned in verse number 16 to 22. 16, the seer of the truth. Tattva darsibhi. Who is seer of the truth? The seer of the truth is that who sees Ashat as a Ashat and who sees Shat as a Shat. So who is Tattva darsibhi? Who is seer of the truth? The seer of the truth is that who sees temporary thing such as body as Ashat. The body is Ashat, it's going to destroy. So Tattvadarshi will see Ashat material as Ashat, while soul is eternal. So seeing soul as a Shat, soul as eternal, is what the constitution of the soul is, that it is eternal. So person who is Tattvadarshi, he will see things as it is. He will see Ashat as false, and he will see Shat as eternal. So that instruction is given to Arjuna in verse number 16. And then continuation on same line of instruction. Krishna is saying in verse number 17 that the soul is avinashi. Soul is something that never get destructed. And then in verse number 18, Krishna is giving a very beautiful comparison between the material body and spirit soul. He says the material body is perishable, while the soul is eternal. The soul is in destructible, and immeasurable. So therefore, oh Arjuna, get up and fight, because you are right now worrying too much about body, which is asat, which is perishable, which is going to be destructed anyways. Rather, you worrying too much about the asat, about the body, go up and start acting on the platform of shatta. Go and start acting on the platform of soul. In verse number 19, the soul doesn't kill or get killed. The soul is not the killer. So soul has nothing to do, with killing somebody or even get killed by somebody. And then in the part Prabhupada is writing that the soul is very, very minute, 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. So it's very, 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 very small, very, very small. And that reference is given in Shweta Shavatar Upanishad, and also where it's situated, where soul is situated. Soul is situated somewhere in the heart, and that reference is coming from Mundiga Upanishad. So soul is not going to get killed, and soul is not the killer. Soul, verse number 20, soul never dies. Body undergo 6 changes. So these are the 6 changes that body undergoes. So first, birth, and after birth, we continue existing, and then growth, the body grows, and then it produces the byproduct, and then it starts deteriorating, and finally it meets death. So these are the six changes that body undergoes. So this is the body that's going through these 6 changes, but soul has nothing to do with these 6 changes. No one can kill the soul. Soul cannot be killed. That's basically mentioned in verse number 21. And then 22, changing body is similar to changing clothes. So very much eternity of the soul is proven through verse number 16 to 22. Now from 23 to 25, the quality of the eternal soul is mentioned. And what is eternal soul? So there is 3 verses, verse number 23, 24, and 25. So verse number 23 talks about that soul cannot be cut by weapons, cannot be burned into the fire, cannot be moistened by water, and cannot be withered by wind. Verse number 24 talks that it's unbreakable, and the soul cannot be burnt. It's everlasting and exists everywhere, unchangeable. It's immovable and eternally the same. Soul doesn't change. It's eternally the same. It's imperceptible and inconceivable. It's immutable or without changes. Knowing it to be thus, you should not grieve for the body. So very, very, technically, and Prabhupada, if that's why if you read Prabhupada's purport, then you will have very profound understanding on this subject. But very technically, Krishna has given so many points to confirm that the body is a matter, and the nature of this body is to deteriorate, to dwindle, and to annihilate. So body, don't worry too much about the body. It's going to get deteriorated anyways. Even if you try to save it, it's not going to be saved. Rather, on the other hand, the soul is eternal, and you cannot kill it, you cannot cut it, you cannot burn it, you cannot make any change to it, you cannot even conceive it, all of that eternity that soul has. So very clearly through this verse, Krishna has proven the point that soul is eternal. But if you believe that we are the soul, we are the spirit soul, if you believe in that, then all of these arguments will make sense to you. Yes, soul does not do this, soul do that, soul doesn't do that, soul do that. But what happens if we believe that we are not the soul? What happens if we believe that we are not the soul? Then in verse number 26 to 30, Krishna is giving another argument that, okay, if you think you are the soul, here is what the soul has to do. Soul, these are the nature of the soul. But if you think that you are not the soul, then what is next? What you have to do? So in verse number 26, basically, Krishna is saying that even if you think that the soul is always born and dies forever, you will still have no reason to lament. He's saying that even if you think that we are not this body, there is no reason for you to die, for you to basically lament. In verse number 27, and we'll go to that point. We'll explain. It's good. Now it's getting a little bit finer. It's getting a little bit in the fine area. What exactly that mean? And I'll try to kind of make the point clear. But let me go through it. So 27. So we are right now here to this section. We are thinking that we are not the soul. The body is not the soul. Then Krishna is giving the argument, giving the reasoning to Arjuna. Even if you are not the soul, why you should fight? So the inevitable birth and death cycle. He's saying that whoever is born is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth. So both are unavoidable. Hence, you should not lament and you should fight. So even if you don't buy that we are the soul, but you have no control on the birth. Krishna is saying that the birth is unavoidable and death is unavoidable. You cannot unavoid any one of these. So even if you are not this body, you have to fight because you have no control over it. And then what is birth? Birth is combination of the soul with previously existing senses and body. So I'm not sure that I should explain this here right now or I should explain later, but since I'm talking here, I'll try to just explain it. What does it mean? So birth is basically when soul takes up, soul, Atma, when takes up certain senses, certain body, then it's birth. And what is the death? The death is basically separation of the soul from the body and its senses. So just to make it a little bit more clear, so we have, as you know, we have gross senses and we have subtle senses. 5 gross senses: mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the 3 subtle senses. Okay. So this human body have these 8 senses: 5 gross senses and 3 subtle senses. So when we leave the body, we leave this body with these 5 gross senses: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. So or ether. So these five gross senses: Chit Jala Bhava Gagana Samira Panch Tattva Nirmit Adham Sarira. This human body is made of these 5 elements. So these 5 will live. But the subtle mind, intelligence, and false ego, these 3 component of our body is the carrier of the soul. So when we take the next body, mind, intelligence, and false ego take the body based upon the desire, based upon the prominent desire that you have to basically enjoy or to fulfill the desire that you had in your previous life. The soul carries those 3 subtle element and then takes the next body. Same thing happens, when we die. Basically the subtle senses are taking those, taking the Atma and going into the gross body, and then it becomes birth. So what Bhakti does is that Bhakti basically, so when we talk about Bhakti, by sadhana Bhakti, first we purify our gross existence, okay? And then gross existence is purified, then the subtle mind, intelligence, and false ego also get purified. So when we talk about purification, we are talking about purification of mind and the subtle, basically senses, mind, intelligence, and false ego, and the gross. When both gross and subtle, all these 8 elements are fully purified, then soul basically get out of the cycle of birth and death. So just to make that point clear here, and we'll talk more about these things later as we get into the further chapter. But the bhakti is the only process that basically purifies both the gross existence and as the subtle existence, and that's what is also the liberation. Even we are in the material body, but if we are purified with our gross senses, if we are fully purified with our subtle senses, then even I have this body, but I am not basically conditioned soul. I am a liberated soul, like His Divine Grace, six Goswamis, or great acharyas. They had this gross body, but their whole existence was completely purified. So I just wanted a little bit touch on that what exactly it means by taking birth or meeting to death. So in verse number 28, Krishna is saying that all living beings are invisible in their beginning. Okay, before birth. Before birth, all living beings are invisible, and then they manifest during their lifetime. So now we have manifested, we have formed some physical form, we have some kind of some sort of intelligence, some look. So we have some sort of manifestation, whatever it is. The details could be immense, but we have manifested now. And then at the end, again, after death, we become invisible. So it's invisible before birth, it's manifesting, and then again becoming invisible. So if you really put into a Gaussian curve, it's like this, the parabolic. You are not existing, but then you are existing for some time. Okay, so that's what Krishna is saying. So Krishna is saying, even if you are not this body, but you have this two end, you have been invisible, you have manifested, and you will become invisible. So what do you have in your hand anyways? And I just want to basically explain this point, taking shelter of two philosophy, Sankhya philosophy, and then Drishti Srishti Vada philosophy. So Sankhya philosophy says that even if you are not visible, so for example, take the example of a house, a big bilding. The buildings are basically, if you look into that, the building is basically made up of 5 elements, right? Kshit, Jala, Bhava, Gagan, Samira. These are the 5 elements that that we have used. We have used earth, we have used water, we have used fire, we have used sky, we have used air to build this building. Okay, but what happens is that once this building is collapsed, then what happens? Everything again get back into their original form. It gets back into their original form. So can you say that it is existing or it is not existing? How you can say that it is not existing? Because it has the building was made by earth, by fire, by ether, by water, and now that building has collapsed, but the same thing is still existing. And how it can be understood? It can be understood in the material sense by understanding the law of conservation, that they say energy is not destroyed, energy is not consumed, but it's just the transformation of energy from one form to other form. Likewise, even if you are not in the manifested stage, you cannot say that you are not manifested, because the elements that we are of, that the elements that we are made of, that element will continue to exist. So how you can say that I was not existing. On the other hand, if you say that I'm existing, then how you can say that I have always been existing? And the example is given that when somebody is in the dream, when we are seeing the dream appears to be true. Sometimes we become the king, sometimes we become president of the country, sometimes we become movie star. So many things comes in our dream, right? While we are watching the dream, we think that we are that person, we are that person, we are the king, we are the president. But as soon as dream is gone, we come back to our original state and we see that, oh, this is Ramacharya Das sleeping on a 3x4 bed in a small house, right? So what is the point of that existence, which is not real? Okay, so that's the point. I don't know if you are understanding or not, but that's the point. So if you look at from both sides, okay, manifested or unmanifested, both of them are not your reality. Both of them are not your reality. So that's the point being made here. It's a little bit subtle, but that's the point. That's the point, that none of this, so the point that Krishna is trying to tell to Arjuna, that even if you think that you are not the soul, your manifestation, existence, and you are not existence, none of them are your true identity. Okay, we'll continue reading. So verse number 29 basically talks about how how amazing this soul is. And Krishna is saying that somebody sees pashyati, acharya what pashyati kashid enam, somebody is seeing the soul as a amazing subject, as an amazing object. Somebody is describing it as amazing. Somebody is hearing about it as amazing. So this is really, the soul is very amazing. And then just quick point about how amazing that soul is. Soul is the living force in a small microbe that we can't see with our naked eyes. And the same soul is living force in a gigantic creation, such as maybe dinosaur was at some point, I don't know, just take the example of elephant. The same spark of atomic energy, but how they are different. So this difference is basically, that's how the soul is. The soul is very, 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 very amazing. So Krishna is saying that you cannot basically, you cannot perceive how amazing this soul is. And then in verse number 30, he is summarizing that the soul that dwells in the body can never be killed. It's basically not going to get killed. So don't worry about this bodily conception that has created around you. It was very, I don't know, I was able to make the point clear or not, but I think Krishna has very systematically presented the facts with Arjuna and trying to help him come out of the illusion that he has. So far, what we studied was based upon the jnana, based upon the Jnana Yoga, scientific understanding, analytical understanding of the matter and spirit. Now, and this will be the last slide. So now Krishna is basically talking to Arjuna, and he is telling him about shakam karma, about prescribed duty. Okay, so this is very common subject. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with this word shakam karma. So after Jnana Yoga, giving him the scientific analytical understanding of the soul, now Krishna is telling Arjuna that you have to act as per your prescribed duty, and that's the main purpose of the varnashram. We have varna and we have ashram. What are the varna? Varna is that we have Brahmin, we have Kshatriya, we have Vaishya, and we have Shudra. So Varnashram system, the skeleton of the Varnashram system, or the backbone of the Varnashram is based upon Shakam karma, based upon the prescribed duty. So the summary of this section is that Krishna has spoken to Arjuna in depth about what is the difference between matter and soul based upon analytical study using the Sankhya philosophy. Now he's going to give instructions to Arjun based upon Shakam karma, based upon prescribed duty. So verse number 31 to 32, Krishna is saying that this is your duty. As you are Kshatriya, your Varna is Kshatriya. So as a Kshatriya, this is your duty. So don't talk about that. I want to beg. Begging is not what your Varna is. Your Varna is to fight. So this is your Swadharma. This is your prescribed duty. That's why you should not hesitate, or you should not have any fear in fighting, because this is against your Varna. And if you fight because you are Kshatriya, and this is your Swadharma, if you fight, then you will go to the heavenly planet. You'll go to the heavenly planet. And then he's saying that if you do not fight, because you are Kshatriya and you are not following your prescribed duty, then you will incur sin because you didn't follow your Varna. So that's basically from verse number 31 to 33. And the part of the 33 is also continuing the next session, where Krishna is saying that by avoiding fight, you will incur sin and infamy and criticism. So 33, 34, it's akriti, it's infamy for a Kshatriya to come into the battlefield and leave the battlefield saying that I don't want to, fight, because they are my relatives, or it's I love non-violence. You cannot do that, because now we have come to the battlefield as a Kshatriya. As a Kshatriya, it's your duty to fight. If you don't fight, and if you leave Duryodhana or Dhritarashtra, they are not going to appreciate you, saying that, oh, Arjuna was such a great man. See how compassionate he was. He didn't fight. Rather, they will say that you were coward. You were basically a man who was so fearful. You are the man who left the battlefield and you didn't fight. So that's going to be a kriti on you. It's not going to be kriti for you. It's going to be a kriti. It will create infamy for you. And then 35 and 36, Krishna says that not fighting, all you are doing is that you are criticizing yourself as a great warrior who had a lot of reputation into the society. You have won so many, fights so far. If you do not fight, people will say, what type of, fighter was this Arjuna? Your enemy will speak bad about you. They will criticize you. They will laugh at you. So this is your prescribed duty. This is your dharma as a Kshatriya. And if you do not do, these are the things you are going to see. So what will happen if you fight? If you fight, what will happen? If you are killed, you will attain heaven. In the battlefield as a Kshatriya, if you fight for dharma part is not coming here. Krishna is not talking that you are by this fight, you are going to basically help me establish the dharma. That part has not come here. That will come later. But he's saying that as a Kshatriya, if you fight, you will go to heaven even if you get killed. But if you become victorious, then you will enjoy the heaven. You will enjoy the opulence around you, because as a Kshatriya you did what you were supposed to do. So up to this point, basically Krishna has spoken to Arjuna about Jnana Yoga and about Shakam Karma Yoga. In next section, we'll talk about Niskam Karma Yoga, and then also about Sthit Pragya, some elements of bhakti. Okay, so this is the basically quick summary of chapter 2 until verse number 37. We'll continue on next Sunday. So I can take one or two advice or comments or anything that you have, or maybe we can take some time to talk about chapter 1. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.